Hey guys, how's it going? Twiggs here, and as you can probably guess from the thumbnail or the title of the video, or what you're looking at on the screen at the moment, Genshin Impact and Hoyoverse might have possibly just killed the drive and the motivation for their players and their community to even engage in this game. And the game being obviously Genshin Impact. It is absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely mind-boggling. When we get to the interview, I don't even understand or can fathom how any higher up in Hoyoverse allowed whoever it was that went into this interview to say the things that they said. If you guys want to hit that like and subscribe button just to help me out, I appreciate it. If you guys want to hit the notification bell, and it'll let you be informed whenever I go live or upload any new content. But let's get into it. This is ridiculous. So I'm on MTashed here. MTashed was how I became aware of what's going on because I was asleep for most of the day. So you can imagine when I found out about this, I was absolutely blown away. So MTashed, like I said, this is how I became aware of what was going on. Damn, almost all my motivation to improve my account and even really play Genshin Impact long term was removed because of this article. I am not quitting yet or really have another game I'm interested in, but this kind of hurt. And I get that. After I read the article, I got that. So we're going to jump right into it. We'll go over other creators' reactions to this. But this is the interview. So this article is by GameSpot. They were the ones that conducted the interview. The title of the article is Genshin Impact Developers Talked In-Game Content and Welcoming Newcomers. They spoke to developers behind Genshin Impact to learn about what's coming after version 3.1. So that was the goal, and well, they managed to actually get some answers from Genshin Impact. So basically, they wanted to go over like what they said up here in the subtitle. They're talking about what's possibly coming after 3.1, what in-game content might be coming, or well, you just wait. Resin cats, costumes, and more. Things that the player base actually is interested in knowing, interested in getting for the game. Things that we aspire to have in the game. So, GameSpot, their first question was, version 3.0 and 3.1 are expected to be 1 week shorter than usual. In the future, will you be continuing these shortened version lengths, or should players expect update releases to return to their former pace? This was Genshin's response, or Hoyoverse's response. I'll just say Hoyoverse continuing forward. Starting from version 3.0 to the end of version 3.2, the length of each update will be shortened to 5 weeks. But a shorter update cycle will not influence the quality of gameplay and content. Please stay tuned. So, this was an interesting question. We already knew what Hoyoverse and Genshin's response was to this when we heard about what was going on due to the delay back with the Golden Apple Archipelago and the what they put out about how the future updates would work going in after Sumeru. So basically they just rinsed and repeated what we already knew. This was literally a non-answer to this question. They, like I said, they regurgitated everything that they already told the player base. So, in other words, they don't know, or they're not letting us know yet. Alright, so next question by GameSpot. This is a big one. Currently, the Spiral Abyss is the only true in-game content for players at high adventure ranks. Are there any plans to release new, permanent in-game content in the same vein as the Spiral Abyss? Hoyoverse's response. The Spiral Abyss is one of the most effective ways for players to test their party composition and combat strength. If we design another type of permanent in-game that is similar to the Spiral Abyss, oh boy, this is going to be a good one. it might end up creating excessive anxiety for our players. Not everyone is interested in Musgrave. This was so dumb. So, we're basically saying that, holy shit, I'm sure everybody within that 15-day time period after the Spiral Abyss resets, oh, they gotta be so anxious. Oh, their nerves have to be acting up. Oh, their blood pressure has to be through the fucking roof. Because damn, Spiral Abyss, that's some tough shit. Damn, God, I don't even know how our players handle the Spiral Abyss when we also got a actual challenging event going on at the same time. Damn, we might be sending them to the hospital to get their blood pressure checked. We don't want to give our players a heart attack or a stroke. No, this is where it really begins with Hoyoverse and the Genshin Impact the Genshin Impact devs really start to show how much they don't understand their player base and their community. So are you telling me that, let's go to another game. Are you telling me that Destiny 2 players had to be the most anxiety induced players when they had to do Grandmasters, Master Raids, raids in general, going into trials on the same day? Those guys have to be on some blood pressure medicine for the anxiety that they have to be going through. Damn. This is so stupid. This was so stupid for him to say this. Your player base isn't... The only thing that's making your player base have anxiety is the fact that their only thing that they have to do besides waiting for a challenging event to come along is Spiral Abyss. The anxiety of finishing the Spiral Abyss and realizing that you have to wait 15 days for another rotation to actually be able to challenge your builds for your characters. So let's continue. Just like the Genius Invocation TCG that we have unveiled in the special program for version 3.2, we are also working on designing more interesting gameplay in the future. As an open world game, Genshin Impact has a natural compatibility with various types of gameplay, which gives us confidence in the long-term operation. The only issue here is that they literally stated in the special program for version 3.2 is that the TCG will not have any rewards. So basically you already told your player base to not even, unless you're wanting to do it for fun, which I can understand that. But when you partake in this new game mode, don't expect to get anything out of it than just a sense of fun. There is no rewards, and you already kind of, with that in mind, you already potentially gave off the perception that your future game modes might not have rewards either. And the thing is that this is where it really starts to show a disconnect from, or the perception of a disconnect, that the developers are not really in tune with not just the community, but what the actual design of the game is. And we're going to get into that later with Resin, but to kind of give you an idea, this is a video game. A lot of what goes into building your characters, ascending them, leveling up their talents, the process of getting the materials to level your characters up, to level their talents up, is through combat, that style of gameplay. this is what your community wants. And I know there's people out there that are going to be like, well, yeah, the combat's nice, but I also play for the story. I also play for just exploring the world. That's fine. But if you notice, the element, there's always an underlining element, even if the narrative is taking more focus in the story, even if there are more puzzles involved with the exploration. At some point in that journey, in that process, there is an element of combat-focused gameplay. For example, like we saw, let's go with the last part of the Archon quest centered around Inazuma and the Raiden Shogun. You had to not only fight La Senora, but then you also had to engage Raiden Shogun in combat. If your characters weren't leveled up for that shit, you were going to get your ass handed to you. And in order to level up your characters, you had to go through the process of several points of combat. Getting the talents, getting the ascension level material to get your character leveled up. Combat is always a part of the game, no matter where you are. Even if it's not the biggest focus at that point in the game that you're on. So, it's an underlining fact. It is a fact that will always come up. It is a fact. And that is what Hoyoverse seems to have disconnected from. Or they just lost the focus. They just lost focus. They want to add all these mini games, which is totally fine. I'm cool with mini games. I think the card game looks like it might be at least fun, but granted, it's disappointing that they already said there's not going to be any rewards. But you gotta stay true to what is part of the core part of the game. And in Genshin Impact, a core part of the game is combat. It is a fact. Granted, I will give you that exploration and story is also a big part. But combat was always one of the core features of the game. And it is a great combat system, and it just is so disappointing that Hoyoverse will not focus in on it. Or they just don't want to. So let's get to the next question. Genshin Impact is going into year 2 with an ever-expanding roster. Some older characters might get left behind as power creep settles in, and newer characters become much stronger choices. Is there a plan in place to potentially upgrade older characters and make them more viable? Hoyoverse's response. If a character is only assessed by a single dimension of numerical strength, power creep could indeed be an issue. However, in Genshin Impact, the rules of gameplay are more impactful than just how strong a character is. Therefore, new battlegrounds, new challenge levels, or even new team builds all have potential to bring new life to existing content. This is one of those things where yes, and it's a yes and a no. It is 100% a yes and no. Yes, there have been cases where a character has gained new value due to new things being added to the game. We look at Yamiko, we look at Kaching now with Dendro being added to the game. Yamiko and Kaching and even some other Electro characters found new value with Dendro being added to the game. That is true. But there are also some other characters that literally will not be meta and will not have any true value other than niche situations, no matter what. Like I said, unless there's a niche situation. Example, Amber, Chi-Chi, Xinyan. They won't. The characters are way too weak. The only time I ever need Amber is if I need to shoot a fire arrow at something far away. Chi-Chi will never, ever be meta. And no, I'm not talking about the people that build her for just meme purposes. They're building Chi-Chi just for the memes. Same thing with people that build Amber. They're doing it for the meme. In a realistic situation, in a realistic environment, when we're talking about meta, when we're talking about what's going to get you the best results, when you're trying to do something and achieve the best results. Amber, Chi-Chi, and Xinyan, and even characters like Lisa. No. And it's just not going to happen. Those are characters, and there are going to be probably characters in the future that end up outshining characters that we have now. They're not going to see value. So it's a yes and a no situation. Like I said, Dendro was a good example of what they're talking about here, where it did buff Electro characters like Yamiko and Kaching, but there's also a no situation where, like I said, characters like Amber and Chi-Chi, they're just going to fall behind. And they fell behind as soon as the game launched. Next question. The introduction of Dendro has created plenty of ways to cause elemental reactions, but some elements have been left out. Has there been any discussion regarding addition of new reactions for existing elements? For example, in the future, could there be a new Geo and Dendro reaction? The Hoyoverse's response. We have no such plans for the time being. With the release of the Dendro element, the 7-element system has become somewhat complex. For us, there are other ways to increase the fun for players rather than simply increasing the complexity of the game rules. With easy and open rules, given some time, players will come to discover their own ways of developing builds. This is the fun of the game. The balancing of all gameplay rules is part of the team's long-term design focus. Plus, the team's experience and learning from player feedback in the long run are all important to maintain that focus. Well, honestly, it feels like you guys just completely lost focus when you gave this interview. So, one thing that I noticed that people pointed out is that given some time, players will come to discover their own ways of developing builds. This is the fun of this game. The balancing of all gameplay rules is the part of the team's long-term. And then here's this. There are also other ways to increase the fun for players rather than simply... What I just pointed out there was Hoyoverse contradicting themselves. And I saw that other people pointed this out too. In one instance, they're saying, oh, well, we think there are better ways other than increasing the complexity of the game rules. But then in the second paragraph, you say players will come to discover their own ways of developing builds, given some time, and that they say this is the fun of the game. Okay, well then which one is it? You're assuming that we'll, in time, figure out builds, and that is the fun of the game, and that is 100% true. Ever since Dendro came into the game, the fun of this new element is figuring out builds, what characters are best fit to make the most optimized team when it comes to reacting with Dendro Hydro, Dendro Electro, Dendro Pyro, and then mixing things in between. You already added a complex element. Dendro, I will say, is probably one of the more complex elements due to the fact that it has reactions within reactions. You literally created a complex element. And then in the same instance, you'd say you don't want to add complex stuff. This whoever this is literally does not know what they're talking about. And the fact that they're saying that not only is it insulting and aggravating that it seems like they don't know what they're talking about. But to add on top of that, it seems like they're speaking about things that just are going to crush the hopes of what the player base wants for this game. But like I said, he says one thing in one paragraph, and then in the next paragraph, he completely defeats what he said previously. The world of Teyvat continues to expand, giving players so many more challenges to complete daily. Domains, bosses, ley lines, stuff like that. Is there any chance we can see a cap increase for original Resin, or a quicker regeneration rate to allow players to take on more of these challenges each day? Hoyoverse's response. Domains, bosses, and ley lines are important means to farm character and weapon ascension materials, and Resin, which is required to claim these items as rewards. Meanwhile, we're also providing more options for gamers to attain character development items. For example, many character and weapon ascension materials can be obtained and redeemed from events that we run periodically. This was such a non-answer. And it will... Oh God. This was such a non-answer. Alright, so let's tear this apart. Yes, obviously, we got 160 resin. They've only increased it one time, and that was literally the only time. And the insulting thing about that increase is that they didn't do anything about the timer. So, what makes this so dumb? They say that they give us these materials in events. Basically, they're practically advertising their events, saying, hey, if you want more of this stuff, play our fucking events. Yes, that's why we play your events, is sometimes to just get the materials from it. Everyone knows this. Everyone realizes this. The dumb thing about it is that that's how it's always been. That is literally how it's been since events started in this game, which was literally roughly when the game came out. We already know this. This is why this is such a dumb non-answer. He literally stated what we've already seen in game since the beginning. The problem with Resin is that, yes, I get why it's there. Resin is a time-gated way to have concurrent players. That is the point of Resin. So that when you use up your resin one day, then, well, you're like, well, shit. Well, I guess I'll have to get on tomorrow to continue what I'm doing. Bam, they got you. They got you as a concurrent player. That's the point of Resin. It's to have a concurrent player base. What they don't realize is that, yes, even if I had unlimited resin, I know that I'm going to probably get done with what I'm doing faster. But if I had unlimited resin, then I would probably be staying in the game longer, because I would have I would have an infinite amount of resin to stay in the cryo set, hydro set domain on Dragon Spine to get my attack piece sands that I've been trying to get for almost a year, almost 2 years. I had Ayaka since last year, so since a year. It's one of those things where I get their point of resin, but I also get. It's aggravating. This whole interview is aggravating. Alright, so next question. New players may have been a bit lost when starting the Summertime Odyssey event because they missed Fischl Amona's first introduction. This also happened when Skarmu showed up in Inazuma's Archon quest after he appeared in the limited time Mondstadt event. Is the team considering adding a way for new players to see or replay old story-related content and cutscenes that only existed in past limited time events? Hoyoverse's answer. We're aware of this issue and are looking into solutions for it. On one hand, stories from limited time events shall never become barriers to understanding and playing Archon quest. It kind of was. I mean, it wasn't a barrier. No, not per se, it wasn't a barrier. But it was one of those situations where, yeah, you kind of don't have context to the situation. On the other hand, we're also working on beginner tutorial adjustments, client capacity optimization, intelligent management of past content, and other optimizations. And as our technology and capacity grow, we hope to have a useful solution that players welcome. In other words, they're not probably sure what they want to do about this. That basically is what the answer to that question is. They're not sure what they want to do about it. They're thinking about it, but they're not 100% sure. Next question. Costumes were added to the game last year, providing new, stylish looks for some characters. How likely is that the Traveler become a recipient of one of these costumes? It would be interesting to see the Traveler in clothing that represents some of the regions they enter on their journey. Hoyoverse's answer. It is an intriguing idea to design outfits and accessories with regional characteristics for the Traveler. We don't have anything to share on that front, but we're always considering new ideas. To translate what that answer was the translation is, we didn't think of that, and we might take that into consideration. The next question. As a follow-up to the previous question, Ether and Lamine seem to get fun little accessories during certain quests, like a mask or a flower crown, but they can only be worn for short periods of time. Have you ever considered turning these temporary accessories into a permanent cosmetic? Hoyoverse's response. We've been discussing this question within the team and some other ideas similar to it. However, we don't have any ideas or details to reveal at this time. We don't have any new news or details for the reveal at this time. Their translation. We actually did think of this, but we don't have a response for this in detail yet. Alright, last question. On top of Genshin Impact, Hoyoverse is also working on Honkai Impact 3rd, Zenless Zone Zero, and Honkai Star Rail. There's been a crossover between Genshin Impact and Honkai Impact 3rd in the past where Kaching official arrived in Honkai Impact. Are there any plans in store to do the reverse and bring characters from Honkai into Genshin Impact? Hoyoverse's response. In terms of characterization, we wish to channel more effort and attention into creating characters from the world of Genshin Impact. If there are new opportunities for crossover in the future, we will be sure to share them with everyone. Translation. No. We don't have any ideas or any intention of doing this in the near future. That is the response. And just this interview, this was super damning. So this is what makes this interview even more damning, knowing that this was done over email. That means that there had to be an official representative where Hoyoverse probably looked and skimmed over their responses to these questions. This is an official response from Hoyoverse since it's over email. So this is what they wanted us to know. This is what they wanted us to see. And they had to know that because obviously it's on the fucking internet. This whole interview is extremely damning. This is it's like they didn't even consider that these kind of answers would potentially, and it probably is, destroying the player base morale for this game. You basically just told your community, your player base, to don't expect to have any really engaging gameplay coming down the pipeline that will challenge what you've been working on, no matter what player you are. Whether you're a player that enjoys the events, whether you're a player that loves exploring the world, if you're a player that enjoys the lore, combat is always the core of what you are doing. There's combat that pops up in the story. There is combat that always pops up in exploration. Granted, I will give you that the combat will vary in difficulty, but combat is still at the core. And if you're farming for materials, because you will always have to farm for materials to at least get your characters leveled up to be able to do that combat in the game. Combat is at the core of getting your characters leveled up, so you'll be able to at least take on that combat with relative ease. And this interview basically said, you're not going to potentially be challenged at the very least anytime in the near future or the future that can be perceived at this very moment. And this created such a big response in the community. We'll start with Imtash since he was the one that brought it first. And I watched his video that he put out earlier on the subject. He was destroyed. The man was destroyed. As he said, his motivation to improve his account and to even really play was removed because of this article. He's not quitting yet, obviously, because this is his job. And he doesn't have any game. He doesn't have a game he's interested in the moment. But he basically, from the video I watched of him, he was distraught. I was thinking about potentially watching him read over this with this video, but I wasn't going to exploit his how hurt he was. His passion for the game was destroyed. Tectone. Bro, laughing my ass off. Just as I'm feeling good about Genshin Impact, Hoyoverse does this bullshit talking about it right now on stream. And I watched that. I watched that on Twitch. He was absolutely disappointed, and he already kind of felt this way just because we already got that perception from Genshin that we weren't going to get in-game content anytime soon. But just having this confirmation, that they have no plans for in-game, when this has been a thing that the community has been trying to tell Hoyoverse that we want, just the confirmation of it really breaks your heart, because it just shows that either they don't want to listen or they heard us and they don't fucking care. And let's go to Ziox. This is the dude that builds, gives you build videos, gives his opinion on characters. Let's see here. This makes me so sad. I spent 15 minutes typing a passive-aggressive comment about how I wanted to use the characters I spent months building and how entirely optional co-op bosses, dungeons, puzzles would be amazing and not just anxiety-inducing. But I deleted it because I'm truly more sad than angry. So basically what he's saying is that he was going to make a passive-aggressive comment, like you just said, where he was going to sarcastically bring up the whole anxiety thing that they stated in the post. But he's just disappointed. And then I get into other people's tweets. This interview cemented what I've known for quite some time. This article shed light on some reasons why I no longer really play Genshin. All these artifact runs, all the grinding to build your character. What was the point? LMAO. Genshin Impact refusing to increase resin cap and creating in-game content made by players realizes there's no point in min-maxing characters. They really think Genshin's TCG is permanent in-game content. Seriously. Let's look at this person's tweet. Imagine making such a refined combat system, which it is. Genshin Impact's combat system is excellent. But the in-game is a freaking card game. Nice addition, but I still love the deep lore, the character, the world, but not expanding on the combat system is just a fucking waste of time. They could have at least answered more ambiguously. Honestly, if they did that, I'd still have some hopium, but now I don't have anything. I said anything for them because I was a double negative. Said everything but said nothing. Feels like a player survey is useless in some way. And you know what? That's 100% true. What this basically means is that every time you do a survey for this game, you're wasting your fucking time. They're not listening to you. Anytime you type out that you want in-game content, anytime you tell them what you want, they're not listening. Because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of fucking players out there that have typed in something to the extent of, you want in-game content, you want this, you want that. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm one of those players that have told them that we want in-game content quite a few times. That means that every time that I've told them I want in-game content in this game at the very end of their surveys, they didn't fucking listen. They did not listen at all. They don't care. They don't care about what you want for this game. And that is absolutely the biggest part of what makes this interview so damning. I'm going to read this last statement right here. It goes back to the in-game and anxiety for players. Genshin Impact. You're so disconnected, it's insane. In-game content is optional and would give the players who do want to test the limits of their account further should have the opportunity to do so. Anxiety my ass. Guess I'll just keep insta-killing everything then. And that's 100% true. I said it several times already. Genshin Impact and Hoyoverse, with this interview, just showed how disconnected they are from the community, how disconnected they are from what the core of their own game is. And they just told every player that the point of grinding, there is no point. What you are doing is pointless. The only thing we're working on is events that we don't care if you like them or not. Yes, we may be working on another region. We're working on probably future characters. We're working on probably new stories. But what they don't get is by telling us that they have no plans to buff characters that are lagging behind pretty bad, or even expanding on any other elemental reactions like Geo, because Geo needs one big time, because the only thing Geo does is crystallize. They basically told the player base in the community that there is no point. And for all those people that are saying, well, what about the new characters? Well, if there is no in-game down the road besides Spiral Abyss, then what's the point of getting the new character? What's the point of working on the primo gems to get that character? What's the point of going ahead and farming ahead for that character? Because besides the Spiral Abyss, well, there's no intention. There's no motivation. They just killed it. And then the people are going to say, well, isn't the Spiral Abyss enough? No. Imagine, I go back to Destiny 2. What if the only thing to do was, there was only one raid in the game. And it was, let's go with Last Wish. The only raid in the game was Last Wish. And every 15 days, you would be able to get rewards for Last Wish. And then the only other content in Destiny 2 was story and and events like Festival of the Lost, Solstice, the Dawning. That would kill Destiny 2. Don't get me wrong, Destiny 2 has its flaws too, and Bungie needs to work on those. But as a comparison, that is where we're at with Genshin Impact, only it just has exploration. This interview, it's damning. But I've already spoke long enough about it. This is going to be I've already spoken enough about it. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Let me know how you guys are feeling. Just be respectful. That's all I ask when you comment down below. Is just be respectful. Hit that like and subscribe button. It helps me out. I'll catch you guys later.